Yeah, and then we changed the name into Demand Robotics.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's show the video. Is there sound? No. Okay. Apologies, right? So we do have a slight technical error, right? So we're just trying to get the sound up. And so while that's happening, maybe Richard, you could kind of give us a short introduction about who you are and what excites you today.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Okay,
Just the
wait,
video.
the video. Okay, let's hope the sound works this time around. Okay, let's have the video.
The world's still losing the miner year after year. And for me, a number greater than zero, it should be unacceptable.
ខ្ញុំពិការដែលថានៅការដោះមីនហើយយើងមិនដឹងថាខ្លួនយើងថាបានរស់ទេអញ្ចឹងណាថាទូមីនគឺស្លាប់
We really don't know how many landmines were laid. The estimation may be 4-6 million mines laid. We have cleared around about 1 million mines. At the present moment, we have about 1,900 square kilometers of contaminated land remaining in Cambodia. That's roughly 3 times the size of Singapore.
You hear that click? That's it. If you take a look at the mine itself, the detonator here would require a pressure, and that is all it takes. After the mine being detected, the miner needs to go in there and investigate. And usually what that means is having a hand shovel with some other tools, gardening tools. Ridiculous. That is the tool that they're going with. So what I want to do is to take the shovel out of their hand and put this robot in use so that they can know that if something were to go wrong, it's not their limbs, it's not their lives, it's metal that will need to be replaced. It can take up to 15 minutes or more to dig out a landmine. This robot, we aim to do it in under 5 minutes. If a village were to take 5 years to clear, and we can do so in 1 year, that means hundreds of lives are being saved.
The whole idea of a robot that a guy built in his garage was something quite different. It's totally against the tradition where you have big military companies or big governments trying to develop their own technology for this. This is a small guy with a big heart and then trying to build his own robot.
All right.
Small guy with a big heart, right? As the video shared. And so you can share with the world, right? Who you are and what has been exciting you right now.
Yeah. So I want to give a little bit of background and context on the video. So the video was shot, I believe, at the end of 2018. So it was shot at the end of 2018. And the amazing thing about Demand Robotics, the group that we are building the robotic solution for mine clearance, is that since then we're actually able to push out 2 additional versions from the
Wow.
robot that you see. So just within a short
Wow.
period, we actually were able to accomplish quite a bit. So the robot that we actually waiting to deploy next month is very different from the one you just saw. But the main
Is it
idea
bigger or
behind it is
smaller?
the same.
I'm quite curious. Is it bigger or smaller? I'm quite curious.
It's about the same size actually. So we managed to keep the size relatively small for mechanical equipment. but yes, we're very excited because the version that you saw still has some limitation in terms of the various terrain that can go to.
Mhm.
But the next version that we're actually pushing out this August, we are hoping to be able to shock the world. So that's why we kind of keep it under wrap a little bit. We haven't shown
Mhm.
a video or pictures or anything much because we want to go into the minefield with organization and get result, and then we can show the result and the data from our experiment and from the field trial.
Looking forward to it. When might that when might that be the launch of the new version?
So the new version we actually going to be put into the field in northeastern Cambodia this August. So that's the plan. We have been hunkered down during COVID period as well, but we were able to still design and accomplish a lot. We work hard to build the next version, the version which part of the funding came from Kickstarter, even though that you mentioned about. So this is this
So a
whole
small
effort,
bit
right?
goes a long way. Wow.
So we have about, I believe, more than 300 contributors that uh, give their hard-earned money and help us to finance this next robot that we are building to use in Cambodia to start taking mine out of the ground. So that's the that's the exciting part for the mine robotics.
Richard, I'm quite curious. So when you mentioned about it being a problem, right? These mines in Cambodia, help us understand like how serious or how big it is in Cambodia. Like in Singapore, we don't have the experience of like no one's gonna tell me like, oh, be careful when you go to school, right? Because you might accidentally step something. Like how serious, how big is it in Cambodia?
Yeah, so there's still an estimate between 3 to 4 million landmines left still in the ground in Cambodia, and
Oh,
more
that's
than
like
1,500 kilometers square that still need left to be clear in the country. But if you take a step back and look at the global stage, there's still more than 60 million explosives left in the ground that included landmine, cluster munition, unexploded ordnance, and IED. So those explosive are being spread out among 66 countries. And so this is not a regional problem or a country problem. This is a global problem that is what I like to call a silent killer for a few
Mhm.
reasons. For one, we don't see it as something that's obvious as a problem because it's very being hidden away and it's out of the media spotlight. But it also it's not discriminated. It's an indiscriminate weapon, which means kids,
Yep.
women, children, elderly people. It doesn't have to be military personnel that are going to be suffer from those unexploded ordnance. And so this is a huge problem. In Cambodia, is a huge issue that different organization has been focused to demine Cambodia for the past 30 years. And at the current pace, we are looking for a few more decades before we can see a mine-free Cambodia.
Wow, decades. And so I'm quite curious like how fast with if let's say right like your robots are all over Cambodia trying to demine it Cambodia, how long would it take? Like you said, decades, right? If you were to not have your robot, with your robot, how fast can it get?
We believe with full deployment of our robot in Cambodia, we can have mine-free Cambodia by 2025, which is the original goal
Whoa.
and original mission in Cambodia that the government has been announcing to the global stage saying Cambodia can be mine-free by 2025. And so our robot we designed to help fasten the process, and the goal of 2025 would still be realistic if we are able to take the risk, if different organization and the government are willing to take the risk and do the deployment of this new technology. Now, the that is the main difficult path for us to deploy our machine. Um, and we hope that in the next couple of years we can demonstrate um, more and more capability that allow different government and different organizations to adopt the technology. But as of this moment, the method of sending the miner, like in the video, you can see sending the miner with a hand shovel and gardening tool to dig out explosive is barbaric, is outdated, and We put the man on the moon, we explore the depth of the ocean, and we're still sending
Yep.
man with a shovel to dig out
With
bombs.
shovel. My goodness. And how many deaths like have you received like stories of like people who die during the demining process?
Yeah, so more than 60 to 70% of the demining accident occur in the investigation of the landmine. And so that is the phase where the deminer would go in to dig them out. Now, the casualty number is just one statistic that you can take a look at, but the underlying problem is the physical strain that is being put onto the deminer because they have to be there on the ground with the body armor and face mask. It can weigh up to 20 to 30 kilogram
Oh
that they
my
have to
goodness.
carry through. And imagine sitting there in under 30, 40 degrees Celsius heat with sweat dropping on your face and you cannot wipe it off because your hands are dirty from the dirt. And I can speak this from first-hand experience. I was trained as a certified deminer and I got my training complete. And I was out there doing exactly what you saw in the video. And I can tell you, it's one of the most physically exhausting tasks I ever done. And not only that, among a lot of deminer that we talk to, it also affects their mental health because they have to be mentally prepared and on high alert for
Mhm.
7, 8 hours a day for 20 days in a month. And so now we're talking a lot of about the pressure. Their adrenaline is pumping at all time, and so like mentally, it's very exhausting for them too. So this
Mhm.
whole situation is more than a statistic of casualty number. We're taking a look at the physical and mental exhaustion that being put onto the miner, and on top of that, the duration, the time, the efficiency.
Yep.
Spending 30 minutes to dig out one suspect location should be unacceptable. And the number, if you take a look into the whole context, is even more drastic. For every one landmine found in Cambodia, there's around 800 false positives, which means the miner need to dig out 800 times
Eight.
on average before they came across one landmine. So for each of those locations that they need to dig, it can take up to 30 minutes. And if you do the math, this is why the mining in Cambodia and around the world has been taking so long.
Slowed down.
And
Yep.
exactly because the method and the equipment that we are providing to the miners are not up to standard yet. And if you take a look into many industry in the past 30, 40 years, there's a huge progress in terms of the equipment that people are using to make their job easier. But when we take a look into the mining, in the excavation process, the investigation process, shovel is still the main tool.
And I'm quite curious. So like so now we kind of look at some of the numbers. Like so we have a question here from Dave. How many people step on landmines every day, right, in Cambodia? And who is the
So in
most vulnerable?
Cambodia, in Cambodia, the casualty number has been drastically reduced since the 1990s.
That's
But
good to hear.
year to year, we're still having casualty upward of a few hundred villagers that they step on mine. And a lot of it too, if you take a look into specific village, it's not just the danger or the casualty from stepping on mine, but it's the economic restraint that landmine being placed onto the villagers. Because we're talking about an area or district that people cannot do farming, cannot do agriculture, cannot walk to school, cannot access hospital. And so even though they are avoiding injury and death from stepping on mines, but they are very restricted in terms of their movement, in terms of their way of looking to make income to support themselves and support the family. What I like to say is, in Cambodia, in those districts and around the world where landmine is prominent, what the villager lacking the most is what we are taking for granted, and that is freedom to walk. And they lack that freedom to walk, freedom to explore, freedom to go where they want without fear of dying. And that the feeling that I used to have when I was growing up here in Cambodia before I was very fortunate to continue my study in Canada. And the very first time I went camping in Canada, when I see kids running around the forest and the jungle, instantly I was shocked because that doesn't exist from where I came from in Cambodia because we're not
Wow.
allowed to run around in the jungle in the forest. our parents would tell us to walk where the other person walked, so then we not straying off the path and we don't go to the danger of stepping out landmine.
Wow. So like the idea of growing up in a very different environment and being exposed to a place where you have the freedom to go everywhere you like without fear is something that a lot of us take for granted. And it's also kind of weird, right? So when we are in this COVID crisis, as so now it's like every step out of the house, right? It's potentially like a landmine and like to the health workers out there who's working very hard, and inventors like yourself and the D-miners who working, I would say, day and night, even with fatigue, right? Sacrificing their lives is something that we owe much of our gratitude to, right? So I kind of want to take a step back into history, right? So like we kind of know the numbers roughly on the seriousness of the issue. Going back to history in your own life, what was that spark? What was that spark? Was there a story, right, that kind of make you believe in this mission? Because I coming from like a background as an inventor, there's usually something that has to happen in our life that make us tip across and make this our life mission. What's yours?
Um, so growing up in Cambodia, I was born in Cambodia, and growing up in Cambodia, it was easy to see the impact of landmine having on everyday life to villagers and civilians. Everywhere you walk in the 90s, you go and you see landmine victims lying in the street. We have hospitals that all their job for the doctors to do is to amputate the civilian that step on mines. And so for me, I've seen the impact, the negative impact landmine have on villagers. And when I was growing up, when my dad moved to the countryside, him and his cousin went out and to do clearing the land so that they can grow crops. And unfortunately, his his cousins, my aunt, she stepped on landmine and she passed. Um, and I think it affected our family a lot, but it also just one case out of hundreds and thousands of cases of other families that have family members suffer from landmine and step on landmine, and some of those family lost their loved one, lost their moms, their dads, their uncle, and for me, it also affect our family, and so the feeling of having lose a family member to an object that were placed many decades ago or many years ago, um, and to have a person that not related to the issue but being negatively affected by it, it hurts a lot, um, and I think that's what inspired me to work on this problem. And so since then, I kind of know that this is the direction I want to go. So I've been doing landmine study for years since I was young, and
Wow.
in my opinion, technology is the solution. Technology would allow us to find better method to clear landmine. And at one point, we need to make the economical um, efficiency there, so then it's not worth it to plan more landmine as we can clear faster and cheaper than and the pace that they are putting into the ground. But at this, that is not the situation. And so, very sad to see. Uh, it touched a lot of family. It touched my family, and I hope that we can inspire a lot of people to take a look into this problem and help out with this problem. Now, Imna, I'd like to answer a question.
Yes,
Well,
go ahead.
about our use of technology, where we're going to be putting the technology to use. So currently, we are only deploying the machine in Cambodia, but we are in talk with the United Nations Peacekeeping Force um, to have this technology deployed with their mission when they go to mission in Mali or in Central Africa. And so we have been doing testing with them for the past 12 months. And so we continue looking forward to continue to do trial with them to build a relationship and collaboration effort. So then next year, 2021, we are hoping to be able to deploy multiple of our robots with their mission. And so for us, Cambodia is not the end game. For us, the end game for us would be no landmine around the world. And so we came a long way, but we still have a long way to go as well. And thanks to our team, we've been working hard even during COVID to make sure that our goal can be accomplished one day.
Awesome. And I'm quite curious, like in that process of building up your robots, right? Were there failures? So like any particular story where where either it's a failure story or it's a moment of desperation or of very high pressure that your team has to go through. What was that?
I think we faced a lot of problems since the beginning, and those problems changes as well since our inception. So initially, the main problem for us is that we don't have the financial capability to produce a advanced robotic solution. In fact, if you take a look back into our very first model, very first version of the robot, part of the component were built from wood. That's how desperate we were to actually having a complete unit so that we can test. But since then, we were very fortunate to be able to raise some funding to support our initiative and also to receive the support from more than 300 contributors that help us in Kickstarter to reach our goals and allow us to build and develop this next robot so that we can actually start making impact in the youth. But another problem, or I would say a struggle that we are going through right now, and that is the acceptance from the community, from the mine sector community to use our technology. Um,
And why is that? Why
the
is that?
thing about landmine, the mining sector, yeah. So the thing about the mining sector is that it's mainly usually run by the mining uh, NGO. So what that means is they are very much focused on meeting the donors' goals, and usually donors set them short-term goals that they have to do, and then it's become a race where testing new technology or putting new technology into use pose a risk might not be able to hit their mark or their goals in the first year. And so what happened is many organizations chose the short-term solution of continuing putting the miner at risk, sending them out with a shovel instead of trying new technology to see if it would help their process better. And so this is the mindset that we have come across. But also we have to also taking a look at a serious problem that right now it been taking over the globe, and that is the discrimination that happened against some of the developers or some of the engineers. For us, we are Cambodian Canadian teams. We have Cambodian engineers and Canadian engineers. But when we produce the robotic solution and present, we always got questions about can Cambodian engineers have the capability to produce an international robotic solution? And it come to a point where we had one of the head of an NGOs mentioned that he doesn't expect an engineer from ASEAN country to be able to produce a advanced technology, and we don't have the right environment to do it, which I stood up and disagree
Wow.
completely. And this is the sort of mindset that we are hoping to change with the success of our robot. In fact, in My Robotics, we do hold international patents on our technology, which we are very proud of because we were able to develop cutting edge technology. Our robotic solution can be controlled from up to 1 kilometer away. It is semi-autonomous, which means it can be run on semi-autonomous mode where it can go and find the mine by itself and then do the digging process, or it can
Awesome.
be used the manual process where we can control it in different terrain. And so in the next couple of years, it's going to be very crucial time for us to start demonstrating that, hey, for one, we have a better solution to take the mine on the ground, but indirectly to show that in ASEAN country and Cambodian specifically too can
Yep.
produce cutting edge technology that can help the world.
Yep. And I'm quite curious. So you mentioned about NGOs. So usually NGOs are tied to like charity money. How big is this as a of the amount of finances that go into demining
So the mining,
globally?
right, the mining clearing budget globally is $250 million per year. And that is the huge amount of money that's been pumping into the mining sector year after year. And if you're taking a look into the whole history of the mining, if just a short, small portion of those budget are being invested into technology, I believe a better method would have came across 5, 10, 20 years ago. But it has been overlooked in the mining sector. A lot of technology usage has been overlooked a lot. Now we have NGOs came out in support of technology, but if you're taking a look into the real practical tasks and action that they've been taking, it's still a long way from being acceptable. We're talking about one of the largest mining NGOs that in their innovation department have two individuals with no technical background. And so those sort of issue is what caused this prolonged period of landmine problem around the world. And we got to remember every year that we don't take and clear all the mine in the ground, more and more people are going to be suffer from it. And the ugly truth is that most of those victims, a lot of those victims are children, because children, they do not understand the consequences of landmine as much as adults. So sometimes they will go into restricted area to play with their friends. And so this overall is just a huge issue and a huge problem. And the cost to clear landmine, if you're taking a look at the landmine monitor report, which take the data from all of these demining organizations, to clear one landmine, the cost is $1,000. And now, so we're talking about 50 to 60 million landmine left need to be clear. And so that we're taking a look at $60+ billion to clear all the mine in the ground. And so if we're not making any change, we're not making any improvement, the current pace of mine clearing will take another 300 years before we can say mine-free world. Not only that, this does not account into the new landmine that are being planned every day in current combat zone. And because the landmine ban treaty came out already, what happened is different parties and different groups that have been planning landmine are doing so illegally, and so they do not keep track, which make it even harder for us to go out and clear those mines. And so, in terms of the mining sector, it's a critical situation where funding has been not met in terms of producing technology. We have different organizations really looking into prolonging this process, and every $250 million put into the mining, it's not there. And so we are hoping to revolutionize this industry, to expose the ill practice of the mining clearance, and to have our robotic solution to make a difference once and for all. And we've been working in the past 4 years to make sure we can perfect this robotic solution before we put out to use. But right now, we are ready for the world to see our capability. This past December, we put our machine with the Norwegian People Aids to use and operate for 3 weeks, and we were able to get an amazing result. We were able to dig out all the explosives that they found all within 5 minutes. And so this is a huge step for us, but it also a huge step for the mining organization, so that they can improve. And a great organization like NPA has been nothing but tremendous to us, very open mind in terms of adopting technology, and we believe in the future they will be one of the leading the mining organization in the world because of their experimenting with new technology.
So I'm also beginning to realize, right, that that in the earlier years, people will tell you, this can't work, right? There are many better alternatives out there. We're gonna stick to our usual methods of doing things, and then you meet partners who say, you know what, I'm gonna try this out. I'm gonna experiment. We're gonna explore, and nothing beats having it being demonstrated, right? And yeah, so nothing beats that, right? As inventors, the moment you can demonstrate that it could work, it's like the next tipping point, right? To growing.
And I mean, there's a famous story coming from Henry Ford that said when he asked people what they want, they said they want a faster horse. They didn't realize they want a car. And I think this is the same situation that we are facing in the mining. If we're asking people what do they want, the mining organization will be asking for more funding so that they can do their job. But the thing is, there are limits to all the funding going to different social cost problem, and the mining has been an issue. So some country, the donor fatigue starting to set in, And if
Yep.
there is no change in mine clearance, then we're talking about millions of landmines being left in the ground and no funding to clear them all. And
Mhm.
so that's the situation that NGO have to decide if they are willing to change their mindset and adopting new technology, or will they leave this world still have mines that affect village, not just in Cambodia but around the world.
So Dave knows me as someone who gives puns. So you mentioned about changing mindset. So I would say, we need to make people change their mindset, MINEZ, right?
Yeah.
And so something which kind of heartens me. So I'm an educator, right? So I deal with children, and when you share that a lot of children were amongst the victims, essentially you lose your next generation of inventors, right? Even the next generation of leaders, the next generation of teachers, right? And I want to ask, kind of pose this challenge question to you. What would be some of the ways we can educate more Cambodians or even children around the world to have this inventive spirit? Like, what do you suggest parents or educators do?
I think for parent educator to encourage inventors in Cambodia or anywhere really, I think we have to believe in the dream. And I think in Cambodian culture that has been a really huge problem at the beginning. When if we see kids standing up and saying that they want to change the world, instead of having educator or parents supporting them, pushing them to their goal, we will have people doubting their resolve and in some cases laughing at those comments. And so we having the problem having kids start to give up on their dream very early on because there is no support system to say, hey, no matter how big your dream is, it's possible to get there one day. And I think if we start to pause the reality for a few seconds when we hear kids saying that and say, look, yes, maybe you will be the one that will change this world in helping in the poverty sector or helping with the clean water sector. We got to give them chance to dream and to dream big, because if we don't encourage that, we will never find an inventors that came from a tough background and can change and shape the world. I can touch on a little bit of the question. So, what's the
Yep, go
biggest
ahead.
technological challenge to solve while inventing this robot?
Yep.
And I can say one of the main challenge of our robot is to be able to build it effectively, cost efficiently, but also blast resistant. As we
Mm,
know, with landmine and with explosive, it is um, even no matter how well we build it, there's still an unpredictable factor being placed. And the reason is there are many different type of landmine, and some of these landmines being planned 20, 30 years ago. So there's still an unpredictable factor. And so if that is something that were to go off, those landmines were to go off, we do not want to sacrifice our whole robot and have to produce a new one. We want to be able to make it blast resistant so then we can take minimal damage to the robot that can be easily repaired and having it back into the field the next day. And so designing it like this, we have to really careful. We have to be really be careful with every component that we are being placed. Every design that we have to look into the blast impact and design around that. And so that is has been a great challenge, but also a fun challenge for us too. And for us, we realize that if we going into this job long enough, one of these days the landmine will blow up while we dig them out. But the great thing about that is, instead of losing a person's life when the unpredictability of explosion happen, now we're talking about welding a new piece of metal. And so that's
yep.
why the robot itself, we call it Jivat, we call it life, because not only would it help the life of the villagers, but also will save the life of the miner that doing their day-to-day job onto that problem.
I have a question about the technology side, right? So for the talents who are working with you, what kind of technological backgrounds do they have, right? Are they like mechanical engineers? What's their background?
So we have a mix between hardware and software engineers working with us. Our CTO is a former Uber engineer that decided to join us full time. Our
Wow.
Cambodian our Cambodian engineers, we were very fortunate to have to be able to recruit them to work with us. They were the number one and number two champion students coming from Cambodia in robotic solution and in robotic building. So we were able to pick the cream of the crop and putting the brain of all of them together and coming up with this solution. And so I'm very proud of our team that have been working very hard. And most of the credit and a lot of the credit of building the actual robot and do the designing has to go to my team. For me,
Mhm.
I am working hard to make sure that we removing financial constraint, so then we can build the robot that we want to build that will make an impact. Because since the beginning, our dream and our goal has been just one, and that is to clear mind and make an impact in the world. Um,
That's, that is very heartening to hear. So we're also reaching the end of the session, and I thought it's kind of a waste, right? If let's say we gather everyone across the world on campus party to listen to you, I want to end off the whole conversation with what could be the top 2 to 3 things that all of us, right, around the world could do to help you moving forward to really make this world mind free, right, by 2025.
um, you know, just I want to thank you, Campus Party, too, just inviting me to speak today and to speak 2 years ago. It allowed us to share our message to many people, and I think with the mining sector, if we want to change it once and for all, we will have to educate not just the people working in the sector, but also the general public to see what are the problems with the mining sector. And if all of us can come into an agreement that, hey, these things need to be changed, we can begin to put pressure on the organization that is not operating above board, that is not being efficient, that is being corrupted. And I think we can see the evidence of corruption all the way through the mining sector if we just read all the recent report. And so if we have the support of the general public, we can start putting pressure on them to be more accountable of their action, to be able to allow further collaboration between not just between them and us, but between each other of different mining organization, and able to share technique, able to share equipment, and we can no longer look into the mining organization as a separate entity, but as a one collective groups that working toward the same goal. Because sometimes it's very easy for the mining organization to forget about why they exist in the first place, and start to take a look into their organization goal as the main goal that they are chasing toward. But instead of realizing that all of us here doing one thing, and that one thing is my free will. And so just allowing me to come on today is great. And if the global campus party community will learn more about this topic, and then we can start requesting more accountability coming from these NGOs, but also looking to having donors to be able to put pressure on these organizations. But as well, we are hoping to be able to make an open platform for our robots. So now the community can support, can do the funding support so that we can build more and more machines so that we can give these machines to the right organization to do their job better. And so stay tuned with the My Robotics. We have tons of exciting news coming out this year and next year. And those exciting news are around our impact in the field. And we are hoping to be able to come and give you update again next year or in the next few years if we have an opportunity to. And thank you to Dave Lim, thank you to Ibna, Daniel, and all the whole campus party crew that make this event possible. It's an amazing event. I loved it 2 years ago, and I love it today.
So I've got to know earlier that that you met your wife at campus party. Uh, share with the world a bit.
So 2 years ago, Dave was asking my wife to become a Cambodian ambassador to select different speakers and participants to participate campus party in Singapore. And back then, when I first started to come back to Cambodia from Canada to have our machine to demonstrate the work for different organizations, and she approached me to ask me to become a speaker at that campus party event, and I said yes. And so we spent a lot of time together while we were in Singapore, and just the relationship developed from that moment on. And I just got married this past February. So thanks
Congratulations.
to campus party that I am where I am today.
I'm
And so
quite
it's a
curious.
great
Like
place to meet people.
we've been hearing the story about Richard the inventor, right? Help us understand like what is Richard outside of the invention, right? So what is Richard in outside of the real life, right? What's your hobby? What do you do during your pastime to get your mind away from a lot of the sadness or even the challenges that you see on the ground? What is Richard outside of inventor?
I think one of the main things that I do is I actually love teaching. So I've been teaching for the past couple of years to different groups sometimes from coming from the countryside that they don't have the financial capacity to go into a high-priced university here in Cambodia. So I was able to meet with those groups and share my knowledge and do different program, a communication program and entrepreneurship program for them to understand what I'm doing. And next year, I'm launching a program to be able to teach more and more people in communication and entrepreneurship. You can follow Demai Robotics through demairobotics.com or through Instagram. Follow me
And
at
Facebook.
Richard Yim or Demai Robotics.
Yep. So thanks so much, Richard. So that's Richard, right, from Demai Robotics. We are very happy to have you together with us at Campus Party, and wish you the best as well for the next upcoming launch. And we are very heartened to hear more inventors and more engineers coming forward to really bring the world, make it better. I always say that that in the world there are people who will create damage on Earth, but you are one of the very few that is working very hard to heal the world, right? And I wish you all the best. So thanks so much, and
Thank you very much.
goodbye everyone. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye, Richard.
Thanks so much, Richard and Imran. Thanks so much for that session.
Thanks so much, Vivian.
Thank you.
Hi to finally see you online like this. So hi everyone. Thank you for joining us so far. So we are at day 2. Imran, have you voted yet?
Not yet. So my slot's gonna happen after this in an hour's time.
I see. So just some context for especially the Singapore audiences listening to us. Today is voting day for all of us in Singapore. I literally just rushed back from the voting center to make it.
I might need to rush there later.
Yeah, so thank you so much for hosting the session with Richard. That was really very insightful, and also sharing that little story, personal story of how he and his wife met. So that was really interesting. And tonight, I'm going to host a session with 2 amazing women whom I'm going to bring on just in a very short while. Thanks for joining us so far today. And also tonight, that would be the session with El Gore, Tim Berners-Lee, and Vincef in this historical first conversation with each other. So do stay with us. Just a recap for everyone that's just joining us, Campus Party. We are a tribe of crazy people. It's a festival of ideas, innovation, forces for good, featuring local speakers during this time zone from Australasia. So like what you've heard previously, Richard Im was uncovering the stories of mines and his work done in Cambodia. So this year's edition is really unique. This is the first time that we're going global digitally. Over 30 countries are joining us in this 100% online, 100% free. And we are 100% in support of the everyday heroes at Doctors Without Borders. So,
donate.
Yes,
do contribute to them. Yes,
do contribute and donate. And I didn't introduce myself. I'm Vivian from Women in Asia and also the lead curators of Campus Party. So yes, without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce our next session.
All right, Vivian, I'm
Um,
gonna make a move.
Sure.
Yeah,
All the
so
best.
thank you so much. Yeah, all the best to your session. And pass my
Yes.
regards to Maylene as well, right?
Sure. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Himna. Yes, and Mark, hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us. 100% awesome. Thanks so much. Yes, and we are having our